This is the CBS Evening News with Dan Rather.
Good evening. Secretary of State Haig, using unusually strong and undiplomatic language, lashed out at the Soviet Union today. He accused it of adventurism around the globe, of using terrorism to infiltrate and subvert governments, and of maintaining a hit list of priority targets in Central America, an area he said was of special danger to the United States. Haig's remarks were made before the House Foreign Relations Committee, and Robert Pierpoint was there.
It was the Secretary's first public committee hearing since his swearing in, and many committee members treated the former general as if they were privates in his army. Haig answered one question by revealing that he has apparently written off Nicaragua to the communists.
What we are watching is a four-phased operation. Phase one has been completed, the seizure of Nicaragua. Next is El Salvador, to be followed by Honduras and Guatemala. It's clear and explicit.
There is a Caribbean domino theory that's unfolding.
Well, I wouldn't call it necessarily a domino theory. I would call it a priority target list, a hit list, if you will, for the ultimate takeover of Central America.
Haig explained that such takeovers by communist forces often begin with local outbreaks of terrorism directed from Moscow.
It is the Soviet Union that bears a major responsibility today for the proliferation and the hemorrhaging, if you will, of international terrorism as we've come to know it. They maintain camps, training centers in the Soviet Union, in their Eastern European satellites, in Libya, where literally thousands of third world embryo terrorists are run through a training course to go back to their nations and to deprive those people of their human rights.
The Secretary added that if international terrorism is not stopped today, quote, we are going to find it within our own borders tomorrow. Several of the congressmen expressed concern over the sale of sophisticated military arms to Saudi Arabia because of the danger to Israel. But Haig defended such sales because of the increasing Soviet threat to the Persian Gulf area. The Secretary was then asked if he endorses the Carter Doctrine of repelling Soviet intervention with military force, if necessary, to protect oil resources in the Middle East.
As a matter of vital concern, a change in status quo would be a matter that would have to be dealt with the full range of the power assets available to us.
Haig also suggested that some American ground troops may have to be stationed in the Middle East to help carry out the Camp David peace agreement. The U.S. has discussed that peacekeeping force with several nations, including Canada and Australia, but they show little enthusiasm for putting their forces into the Middle East. Haig himself, however, favors a permanent American presence somewhere in that area, and the Sinai could provide a convenient U.S. military base. Robert Pierpoint, CBS News, at the State Department.
Guatemala, for some time, has been facing efforts at political upheaval similar to those in El Salvador, and for many of the same reasons. Guatemala's military reported today that 6 rebels were killed in fighting the past 48 hours. Unofficial estimates put last year's death toll from the Guatemala violence at 3,000. A high U.S. official in Washington was quoted today as saying that the Reagan administration is considering battling the Soviet Union around the world by providing arms and aid to opposition forces. The Reagan administration, however, claims officially it does not agree with this. Leslie Stahl reports.
Totally off guard late today by a news report quoting a high U.S. official that the Soviet leaders would have to choose between peacefully changing their communist system in the direction followed by the West or, quote, going to war. There is no other alternative, he said, and it could go either way. The official has been identified as Soviet expert Richard Pipes, a senior staff member on the White House National Security Council. Several White House aides were stunned when they read the quote on the Reuters newswire this afternoon. One of them called the language unnecessarily inflammatory. After an hour of meetings and consultations on the matter, White House spokesman James Brady read a tersely worded statement that the high official was not authorized to speak for the administration and the views expressed do not represent administration policy. Officials at the State Department say they're more worried over another Pipes quote, that he is especially concerned that the Soviet attempt to woo West Germany would succeed. U.S. officials fear that statement will infuriate the West Germans. Mr. Pipes has been questioned by officials here who say that he's claiming that there are outright distortions in the story. Leslie Stahl, CBS News, the White House.
For a lot of reasons, a lot of people like our Buick Skylark. A lot. Some like its roomy accommodations for 5. Others like its front-wheel drive traction. Skylark also gets a lot of votes for its stand on the economy. And a lot of people are taken with its luxury and looks. We couldn't get all the reasons people like Skylark into this commercial, but we sure got them into the car.
Now, Buick and its dealers offer a $700 bonus on a Regal or $500 on a Skylark.
Managing the Roman meal mill is not all a desk job. I am responsible for buying all the ingredients, including rye, bran, and hard red spring wheat. Quality control for Roman meal begins in the grain field and doesn't end until the loaf is on your table. I am very proud of Roman meal bread. People like it.
Quality ingredients and special people help make Roman meal bread light brown, tender textured, and delicious.
It's being said that the Senate Budget Committee and President Reagan are marching in lockstep on spending cutbacks. That's not totally accurate. Today, as George Herman reports, the committee was a few steps out in front.
The Republican members of the Budget Committee have generally maintained a monolithic solidarity in preserving and extending the president's budget cuts. The minority Democrats have repeatedly fractured into special interest groups, regional claims, and liberal versus conservatives. Democratic wrangles were ended, revising a number of the president's proposals. A large package of income security programs was cut even more deeply than the president had proposed. Social Security, Medicare and Medicaid, welfare funds, and unemployment insurance. The committee added $312 million more in cuts, bringing the total here to almost $9 billion in cuts in 1982, $11 billion in 1983. In energy, the committee yesterday cut $3 billion out of the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, pushing the energy cuts to $3.4 billion in 82, $3.6 billion in 83. In banking, the Export-Import Bank was cut, but not so deeply as the president had suggested, and Community Development Bank funds were cut more deeply than suggested, enlarging the bank cuts to $958 million in 1982, $2.3 billion in 1983. The committee plans to push ahead tonight, hoping to finish the entire package, but not at all sure it won't be back, arguing the final cuts tomorrow. George Herman, CBS News, the Capitol.
A lot of ideas make great ideas and nothing more. Like the one to raise money to drum up public support for President Reagan's drastic cutting of the budget. Bob Schieffer has that story.
As the president's close friends Charles Wick and Justin Dart envisioned it at the start, the Coalition for a New Beginning was to be a private Reagan booster group, funded by tax-deductible contributions from corporations and private trade associations. Its purpose, mount a massive publicity campaign to pressure Congress into quick approval of the president's economic program. The grandiose plan even included a $1 million 90-city telethon to promote tax cuts. Wick said he had already raised $800,000 for the project. But to say the least, it has not gone as planned, and today one White House official said it has become an embarrassment verging on disaster. Among other things, Democrats have seized on it as a political issue, saying it is just a way for wealthy businessmen to escape taxes while promoting their own special interests. Some businessmen have complained about being done for money, and the telethon has been scrubbed after planning sessions described by one source as sounding like kindergarten arguments. The group founder Wick is no longer involved, and the White House says it has no direct involvement. But CBS News learned that White House aides today demanded a shakeup in the group's leadership. Whoever the new leader turns out to be will have his work cut out for him, because among other troubles, it's been learned the $800,000 that Wick said he raised was never collected. Bob Schieffer, CBS News, Washington.
The guest professor today at a Princeton course on the presidency was the man who left that office only 2 months ago. Jimmy Carter talked with a small group of students, and afterward the students talked with reporters. One said Mr. Carter admitted he was not as effective a president as he could have been. Another, that he said that he might have been more forceful with Iran. And a third student said Mr. Carter claimed his ability to act was hampered to some extent by the press, which he said, quote, deliberately distorted information. Mr. Carter gave no examples. The State Department said today that it's not holding hostage some high-value items taken from the shuttered Iranian embassy in Washington, but that, in effect, is what the government is doing. Over the past 2 weeks, Persian rugs, priceless artifacts, paintings, and very expensive crystal, sterling, and china all have been removed from the building and have been put into secure storage. A department spokesman made it clear that there are some items in the captured U.S. embassy in Tehran that the United States would like to have returned.
Johnny, you know more Europeans vacation in Spain than anywhere else? Really? They go to see the Alhambra of Granada and all the great art. That's nice. They love Spanish food. I am hungry. Me too. Johnny, there is more than castles in Spain. I know. And good sports too. It's all right. Lower prices on food, fast, and fine hotels.
Come to Spain. A lot more vacation for a lot less money.
You like? I like. Okay. It's all right.
It's a home, but it's like no other home. A place you're proud to be and to be from. 'Cause it's your home, and it's like no other home.
At Gallery of Homes, we try to make sure that the people who see your home will love it as much as you do.
This is Abby and Tom Evans. Come in.
Gallery of Homes knows there's no place like your home.
The trial of Carol Burnett's libel suit against the National Enquirer continued today in Los Angeles, but two faces were missing from the courtroom because they watched late-night television. Linda Douglas explains how that happened.
This week's issue of the National Enquirer trumpets rumors of an impending divorce between Johnny Carson and his third wife, Joanna. It is a story that has enraged the talk show host. Last night, an uncharacteristically grim Carson tore into the tabloid during his show.
Now, before I get into this and say any more, I want to go on record right here in front of the American public, because this is the only forum I have. They have this publication, I have the show. This is absolutely, completely, 100% falsehoods. It's untrue for openers. So I'm going to call the National Enquirer and the people who wrote this liars. Now, that's slander. Or they can sue me for slander. You know where I am, gentlemen?
Reports of Carson's statements quickly made their way into the Los Angeles courtroom, where Carol Burnett's $10 million libel suit against the Enquirer is being tried. Judge Peter Smith met with the jurors behind closed doors. He questioned each carefully about what he called certain publicity. Following the secret hearing, two jurors were excused. Both attorneys agreed to go on with a smaller jury.
And reluctantly, the court had to excuse those two jurors because it felt that it would seriously impede the chances of the parties to get a fair trial in this matter.
The Enquirer's lawyer had asked for a mistrial.
It would be prejudicial publicity containing one-sided views, unsubstantiated.
The mistrial motion was denied. Burnett said she was pleased with Carson's statements.
I thought he was wonderful. I think he had a right to use his platform to talk about how he felt.
A spokeswoman for the National Enquirer said the publication will not comment on Carson's statements or anything else until the Burnett trial is over. Linda Douglas, CBS News, Los Angeles.
An independent group of scientists said today that warnings about the dangers of caffeine may be little more than a tempest in a coffee pot. The American Council on Science and Health said a review of more than 10,000 scientific articles on the relationship between caffeine and health has found no alleged disease associations based on valid human evidence. The Council, which describes itself as promoting scientifically balanced views of health issues, was particularly critical of that Food and Drug Administration for advising pregnant women to avoid caffeine. A council spokesman said that the FDA caffeine warning tends to distract pregnant women from more proven dangers, such as alcohol and tobacco.
When we eat our shredded wheat, we never leave them whole. We mash them up and bash them up, we smash them in the bowl. We crush them, break them, squash them, squeeze them, twist them in our fist. We grind them into tiny, tasty bits.
Nabisco shredded wheat, big or little, made of 100% natural whole wheat, with no added sugar, no added salt.
They feel so good, they taste so good for breakfast. We love that whole wheat flavor. We love that whole wheat crunch.
Nabisco shredded wheats. The good taste of 100% whole wheat with no added sugar.
Fact. You're about to witness an act of violence. Brute force exploding, unleashing friction at its worst. Because when you start a cold engine, it's barely protected by motor oil. What can you do? Fact. Use the black oil Arco Graphite. The oil with graphite. The lubricant that clings to engine parts after oil is dripped away. The lubricant that makes Arco Graphite reduce friction better than any other leading oil. Arco Graphite. The oil that's fact, not friction.
A government report recently predicted that it would take as long as 7 years to clean up Pennsylvania's 3 Mile Island, site of the nation's worst commercial nuclear accident. Even as that plant's operators suggest it is a kind of playground, critics charge conditions become more dangerous. And as Steve Young now reports, it's not clear who will pay the cleanup price.
With the second anniversary of the nuclear industry's worst accident approaching, Metropolitan Edison Company today released a videotape trying to clean up 3 Mile Island's image, a place, MetEd says, where one of its employees loves to get in some jogging during the noon hour.
That's where I started running, on top of the cooling tower. Very boring running just in a short circle, so I moved to the roadway where there's nice flat area and no stones and no pipes.
In fact, 700,000 gallons of highly radioactive water released during the accident are still in the reactor building adjacent to the tower. How to clean that up remains a huge problem. MetEd today made available edited videotape of the first direct attempt by workers to take samples of the lethal water. When technicians tried to lower a pump through a hole in the floor, it became snagged. MetEd now puts the cleanup cost at $1 billion and says it has only $100 million in insurance money left. It admits it is just babysitting the damaged reactor now, but critics charge the utility is trying to force a federal bailout.
We're not playing a game of chicken because we don't have an option of doing something different in the way of spending the money. The company simply does not have the cash to proceed with the cleanup.
The utility is finishing work on a filter system to clean the contaminated water, but a government report says the system may not work well enough. With time and corrosion, the problem is growing worse.
There's always the risk of leakage of contaminated water or the waste products after filtering into the river, and the Susquehanna River is, of course, a source of drinking water for many communities.
Completing the cleanup of Unit Number 2 will pose a difficult philosophical dilemma for the Reagan administration. It is for nuclear power, but against subsidies. Steve Young, CBS News, at the 3 Mile Island nuclear station.
As things stand tonight in the coal mine labor talks, there are none, and none are scheduled. The contract between the United Mine Workers and the soft coal industry doesn't technically expire for 8 more days. But many miners aren't very concerned about technicalities. Chris Kelly reports.
Coal mines from western Pennsylvania through Ohio and as far south as Alabama were shut down by the series of wildcat strikes. Some of the walkouts were apparently triggered by the collapse of contract talks. However, these miners in Ohio said they will return to work at midnight despite their misgivings.
But everybody's got jumpy feet. It's getting close.
What's the real reason for that walkout?
Everybody's anxious for the contract.
Miners in Pennsylvania and West Virginia are refusing to cross picket lines in a sympathy strike over the firing of 6 miners. Union officials have ordered the men back to work, but the protest has spread to several mines.
One thing everyone knows, when the chips are down, coal miners lock arms and dig their heels in and they stick together.
A federal court hearing will be held in Pittsburgh tomorrow over whether the wildcatters should be ordered back to work. In anticipation of a nationwide strike next week, industries and utilities have built up large stockpiles of coal. Enough coal, according to some estimates, to get by without any new supplies for several weeks.
Ohio is really in fairly good shape right now because we do have 105 days of coal supply in the state right now.
The wildcatters seem angry that the contract talks broke down, angry over what they consider to be an industry still out to destroy their union. And some miners are saying their strike has begun and that they won't return to the mines until August or September. Chris Kelly, CBS News, Fredericktown, Pennsylvania.
Chemical Bank, the nation's 6th largest, today lowered its prime lending rate 1/2 of 1 percentage point to 17%, effective tomorrow. The stock market was up today.
If you work, you know how tough it is to go home and start cooking. I've been working for years, so I've learned a few secrets. Anytime I don't feel like cooking, I let Stouffer's help me out. They make so many good things. Turkey tetrazzini, scallops and shrimp mariner, creamed chicken, and lots more. I worked hard today, but thanks to Stouffer's, I'm not cooking tonight.
What can you do with challah you can't do with any other wine? Celebrate.
Know why I refrigerate? Because my friends love to celebrate.
This setting should indicate that we know how to celebrate. Hello, darling.
Chala Lambrusco, Bianco, and Rosato have such a bright, clean taste. Every sip's a celebration.
Their wine list is first rate.
All it says is, celebrate.
What a taste to celebrate.
It was, said an investigator, a torch that lighted up the whole industrial scene. The Triangle Shirtwaist Fire in New York City 70 years ago next Wednesday. It resulted in the deaths of 146 young girls, trapped in a building, locked against their escape. Women fainted and policemen wept, and it was said the Triangle girls will never be forgotten. Laws were passed, unions were organized, yet today, sweatshops are back in fashion. The Labor Department estimates tens of thousands of them work in all over the country. 50,000 in 1,500 sweatshops in New York City alone. And as Richard Wagner reports, fire may be the least of their fears.
They're dirty, they're dangerous, they're illegal, and they run wide open in New York City. Over the last 5 or 6 years, there's been a sweatshop explosion here, chiefly because of the soaring number of illegal aliens in this city. The sweatshop operators ignore health and safety codes. They laugh at wage and hour laws. They keep no records. Time cards are as scarce as fire doors. The average pay for 8 hours work, $15.
I wouldn't work for that little bit of money. Nobody. But then I'm here legally. Right. You understand? I'm not an illegal alien. On this avenue alone, you got 100 of them. Between here and 181st Street, you got 100 sweatshops.
Sweatshops operate so openly here that many blatantly advertise for workers in the native language of the exploitable alien. Some sweatshop operators have been in business for so long and are so blasé about it, the arrival of a television crew is no cause for alarm. Other sweatshops, though, are less hospitable toward visitors. Do these workers, these victims, complain? Almost never. They and the bosses are well aware of the threat of deportation. And the money, meager though it is, often looks good compared to what they've come from.
They are all right now because they know that what they are making is enough to send money to their countries.
State Senator Franz Leichter is conducting an investigation of the booming sweatshop industry. A sweatshop worker protecting her identity told, through an interpreter, what happens when workers do complain to the boss.
If they have any kind of complaint, they said, if you don't like it, leave it. Somebody else will take it.
Ophelia is 23 and single. She came here from Honduras a year and a half ago. She says she's here legally, but when asked, declined to show a green immigration card to back up her claim. The per capita income in Honduras is $480 a year. Ophelia told us she makes about $100 for sewing 10 hours a day, 6 days a week. She's paid by the piece. She knows the minimum wage is $3.35 an hour, but says she was told by her boss that the minimum applies only to hourly workers, not piece workers. Informed that this was not true and that she was being exploited, Ophelia said she needs the money. This man operates a sweatshop. He maintains he's not getting rich doing it. He says he pays $350 a month rent for his tiny two-room shop. He employs about 20 people and says his shop turns out about 1,000 dresses a month. He claims that after paying his workers, his rent, and his utilities, he's left with $500 or $600 a month for himself. Of course, he pays no taxes. City officials say New York loses millions of dollars every year because illegal aliens live here, work here, use city services, but pay no taxes. Who's profiting from sweatshop labor? State Senator Franz Leichter points his accusing finger at unscrupulous jobbers, small garment firms which subcontract much of their work, and at truckers he says have ties to organized crime. A half dozen of the jobbers are located in this building in New York's Garment District. All refuse to be interviewed concerning Senator Leichter's charges.
Well, you got a lot of pious, hypocritical answers. Oh, we don't know where our goods are being manufactured. We don't know what the conditions are. Obviously they do. They know because they're paying so little for labor that they must know that they're in a situation where they're benefiting by exploiting these people.
This truck loading dresses from the window of a Manhattan sweatshop is from one of the trucking companies Senator Leichter accuses of charging exorbitant amounts to move goods. The senator also says the truckers involved intimidate the sweatshop operators, preventing them from changing trucking companies.
When you have a business that's on the fringe of the law or beyond the pale of the law, as this sweatshop industry is, where people can't complain, then there's an opportunity for organized crime to move in, and that's exactly what's happened. They moved in through the truckers. We've identified some of the truckers who have been identified in official reports as having organized crime connections, and the truckers are making a fantastic amount of money off the sweatshop, so much that they have actually gone out and organized and set up these sweatshops because they can then make money off them.
All the trucking firms named by Senator Leichter have denied any connection with organized crime or being involved in any illegal activity. Goods made by garment manufacturers accused of sweatshop practices wind up on the racks of some of this country's major retailers and are likely to continue to as long as the sweatshops flourish. And that may be a long time. Federal, state, and local inspection and enforcement agencies have nowhere near the personnel needed to shut the sweatshops down. And the exploited workers, in large part, seem willing to continue to labor in silence. Richard Wagner, CBS News, New York.
That's our report for this Wednesday. Until tomorrow, Dan Rather, CBS News. Good night.
Outside, the Canon NP200 may look like any small copier, but inside there's a world of difference, a world of micronics, where 20 copies a minute are not only possible, but made reliable with a microcomputer. Fiber optics precisely defines your image, and a toner projection system gives you clear copies on virtually any paper. Up to 11 by 17. Compact in size and price, the Canon NP200 is definitely worth looking into.
Hello, I'm Charlie McKee for Electrolux. And this is an America that used to be. A time when companies brought vacuum cleaners to your home, because that's the best place to judge a vacuum. Today, few companies do that. But Electrolux still does, because your home is still the best place to see why Electrolux is better. So open your door to Electrolux. Electrolux, your home is the best place to see why we're better.
This has been the CBS Evening News with Dan Rather. This is CBS.
Going at all times.